In a world filled with mysteries and enigmas, few things capture the imagination as much as encounters with unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and aliens. From reports of secret agreements between governments and beings from other planets to frightening encounters in remote regions, this report will explore some of the most fascinating and introspective stories about the unknown. You won't want to miss this exploration. In February 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower mysteriously disappeared while on vacation in Palm Springs, California. The official explanation was that he needed to make an emergency visit to the dentist, but this version was soon questioned by conspiracy theorists and witnesses who claimed that, in fact, Eisenhower participated in an extraordinary event, the signing of a treaty with a civilization extraterrestrial. This agreement, which became known as the Treaty of Grenada, supposedly established a series of secret pacts between the United States government and beings from another planet. According to these reports, the meeting took place on a highly restricted military base, possibly at Edwards Air Force Base, known at the time as Muroc Airfield. There, in an environment full of secrecy, Eisenhower would have negotiated an agreement with the extraterrestrials that would allow these cosmic visitors to carry out research on Earth in exchange for sharing advanced technologies with the United States Army. The supposed meeting at the military base was described as an unprecedented event where senior military officers, renowned scientists, and religious figures came face to face with otherworldly beings. These extraterrestrials, often called etheri in reports at the time, were described as tall and slender beings with a humanoid appearance, but clearly distinct from humans. During the meeting, a wide range of topics were discussed, from peace and security to technological cooperation. Extraterrestrials have reportedly offered to share advanced knowledge about propulsion, energy, and medicine in an effort to help humanity progress. In return, the etheri requested permission to perform periodic human abductions for the purposes of medical research, ensuring that no human beings would be harmed and that all memories of these encounters would be erased. Eisenhower, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, would have accepted these conditions under certain guarantees. One of the most controversial was the construction of secret underground bases in remote areas, such as the famous Area 51 in Nevada, and others in the region known as Far Corners, where Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, and Arizona converge. These bases would serve as points of collaboration between humans and extraterrestrials. Each of these events is shrouded in mystery and secrecy, fueling countless theories and speculation about what really happened at that time. The story of Eisenhower's supposed meeting with beings from another planet has become one of the main pillars of conspiracy theories involving extraterrestrials and the United States government. Even though many details remain unclear and unproven, this narrative continues to instill the curiosity and fascination of people around the world, leaving open the possibility that perhaps part of this story is more than just fiction. The treaty between humans and extraterrestrials, carried out in secret, soon became a topic of intense debate and speculation. For some researchers and conspiracy theorists, this agreement represented a monumental betrayal, arguing that the United States government sacrificed the safety and freedom of its citizens in exchange for technological advances. On the other hand, there are those who argue that the treaty was a necessary evil, a way to avoid a potentially catastrophic conflict with a much more advanced civilization. According to this perspective, Eisenhower and his military advisors would have acted with the best of intentions, seeking to ensure peace and stability in a world that was barely beginning to understand the magnitude of the UFO phenomenon. Over the years, a lack of concrete evidence and the highly classified nature of related documents have kept the Grenada Treaty in the realm of speculation. However, the testimonies of people like Gerald Light, who wrote about his experience in Muroc, and the numerous mentions in memoranda and correspondence from the time suggest that something extraordinary may indeed have occurred. The impact of these theories was not just limited to UFO enthusiast circles. They have inspired books, documentaries, and films, contributing to growing skepticism about the government's secret activities. According to these critics, the agreement allowed thousands of people to be abducted without their knowledge or consent, subjected to experiments whose purposes and results remain unknown. Accounts of these abductions describe frightening lost time experiences, where abductees wake up in different locations from where they were previously, often with unexplained scars or mysterious implants in their bodies. Terrifying stories tell how these people were subjected to invasive medical procedures without their consent, which generated a deep feeling of vulnerability and distrust towards authorities. The number of reported abductions appeared to vastly exceed what had been stipulated in the treaty, and in some cases the people were never seen again. This breach of the agreement fueled theories that extraterrestrials were using humans for much more sinister research than had initially been agreed. As part of the Grenada Treaty, it was established that extraterrestrials would be allowed to build underground bases in collaboration with the United States military. These facilities would be located in remote areas to avoid public attention and facilitate covert cooperation between the two species. One of the best-known bases is the famous Area 51 in Nevada, which has become a symbol of mystery and conspiracy. The purpose of these bases was multiple. They served as research centers where extraterrestrials and American scientists would work together to develop advanced technologies, such as propulsion systems, weaponry, and energy devices. It was also said that biological and genetic experiments were carried out on humans and other life forms in these facilities in an attempt to better understand extraterrestrial biology and medicine. Access to these bases was highly restricted, and only personnel with the highest clearances were permitted entry. Censorship and disinformation have become essential tools for maintaining secrecy. Any leaks of information were quickly neutralized, and people who spoke about their experiences were publicly discredited, labeled as crazy or fanatics. The media, often in collusion with authorities, minimized or ridiculed sightings and testimonies to divert attention and maintain widespread skepticism. This environment of concealment had profound effects on the population. Distrust towards the government and institutions has grown significantly, fueling a climate of paranoia and suspicion. Communities near areas of extraterrestrial activity have been particularly affected, with residents reporting an increase in unexplained phenomena and a constant feeling of surveillance and fear. As testimonies accumulated and evidence began to leak, it became clear that the truth behind the Grenada Treaty and its consequences was more complex and disturbing than anyone could imagine. The struggle to keep these secrets only served to intensify curiosity, leaving the feeling that there is still much more to be discovered. The determination of the people who were willing to discover the truth behind the mysterious events was unwavering. Next, we will delve into a report that occurred on December 9, 1965. Around 4 p.m., an intense glow crossed the sky over eastern North America. This object was initially believed to be a meteor, but its unusual trajectory, which included a controlled turn, raised suspicions as it headed toward Pennsylvania. At 4:47 p.m., the object crashed into a forested area near the small town of Kecksburg, leaving a trail of light and debris in its path. Residents who witnessed the event described the object as a fireball moving at high speed. Its glow was so intense that it lit up the sky, and its erratic movements aroused curiosity and fear among local residents. Some of the observers who were closest to the site assured that the object had a bell shape and was covered in strange symbols, details that caused the initial explanation of a meteor to begin to be questioned. Shortly after impact, the Kecksburg community was gripped by panic and curiosity. Hundreds of people headed to the forest hoping to get a closer look at what many believed to be a crashed spacecraft. Among the first to arrive at the scene were fire department volunteers and curious locals who described the object as a large metal bell, partially buried in the ground. John Murphy, news director for a local radio station, was one of the first reporters on the scene. He interviewed several witnesses, including children and adults, who described the object as a burning star. A woman named Frances Kalp contacted state police to report that she had seen a glowing artifact in the woods. His testimony motivated authorities to begin an investigation, initially believing that it could be a plane that had crashed. The military response was quick and forceful. Within hours of impact, trucks full of military personnel arrived in Kecksburg and took absolute control of the area. Soldiers cordoned off the location and ordered all civilians to leave immediately, using threats of lethal force to ensure their orders were carried out. This intervention marked the end of any civilian access to the object in the impact area. Witnesses who observed the military operation from a distance reported seeing a large flatbed truck transporting an object covered by a tarpaulin. The shape of the object under the tarp matched initial descriptions of the object as a bell. The speed and secrecy with which the Army acted increased speculation and fueled conspiracy theories. Military authorities officially declared that the object was just a meteor, and that there was nothing special about it. However, those who witnessed the operation were not convinced. The presence of so many armed soldiers and the speed with which the object was removed suggested to many that the government was hiding something much more significant. Years later, NASA intervened to support the official explanation. In 2005, the American Space Agency declared that fragments of debris recovered in the region were from a Russian satellite, Cosmos 96, which had fallen to Earth on the same day. This statement was seen by some as an attempt to close the case with a plausible explanation. However, critics argued that the characteristics of the object seen at Kecksburg did not match those of a satellite. And furthermore, NASA's claims lacked physical proof, as the debris fragments had supposedly been lost in the 1990s. Official explanations did not convince everyone, and several alternative theories began to gain traction. One of the most discussed is that the object was, in fact, a satellite, but not Cosmos 96, but some other type of space device, possibly of American origin. In 1965, the Cold War was at its height, and both the United States and the Soviet Union were launching numerous satellites and secret artifacts. Some theorists suggest the object could have been a prototype re-entry vehicle, or even a failed spycraft. Another fascinating theory that has emerged is that the object could be something completely different, something non-terrestrial. The possibility that it was an extraterrestrial ship was not ruled out by many of those who followed the case. The lack of concrete information, the secretive behavior of the authorities, and the disappearance of the debris only strengthened the idea that there was something more behind this event than the simple fall of a meteor or satellite. This event in Kecksburg became one of the most intriguing UFO sightings and continues to be a point of discussion and research to this day, with many questions still unanswered. People continue to debate what really happened on that December afternoon in 1965, and the mystery remains one of the great enigmas of the modern era. It is speculated that the object seen in Kecksburg could be Die Glocke, or the Bell, a supposed Nazi experimental machine developed during World War II. According to this theory, the Nazis would have created a bell-shaped ship with the ability to manipulate time and space, and somehow, this machine would have traveled through time, from 1945 to 1965, ending up crashing in Kecksburg. The descriptions of the object as a bell and the strange symbols observed on its surface are points that reinforce this theory. Although it lacks concrete evidence and remains in the field of speculation, the incident in Kecksburg left a deep mark on the local community. Many of the residents were deeply impacted by what they saw and experienced that day. The arrival of the army and the way the authorities handled the situation generated a climate of distrust and fear. The military intervention was seen as an invasion and a violation of the rights of citizens, who felt that their experiences and testimonies were discredited and silenced. Over time, skepticism toward official explanations only grew, and Kecksburg turned into a hotspot for UFO researchers and mystery enthusiasts. Annually, the village organizes meetings and conferences where theories are discussed and experiences related to the incident are shared. This continued interest has kept the memory of what happened alive and provided residents with a platform to express their questions and seek answers. The experience of having witnessed something inexplicable and then being disregarded by authorities led to a feeling of isolation and distrust. However, the community found a form of resilience by coming together and sharing their stories, making the incident part of Kecksburg's cultural identity. As the years passed, the combination of testimony, investigations, and alternative theories kept the Kecksburg incident as one of the most enduring and debated mysteries in the history of UFO sightings. The search for the truth continues, with new generations of investigators and witnesses keeping alive the curiosity and desire to understand what really happened in that small Pennsylvania village. Another intriguing report occurred in New Mexico, more precisely under the sands of the Dulce Desert. It is said that there is one of the most secret and controversial installations in the world, the Dulce Base. According to various testimonies and conspiracy theories, this underground base is a complex with several levels, each dedicated to highly classified activities. Supposedly built in collaboration with extraterrestrials, the base is made up of at least 7 levels, each with a specific purpose. The first level is for security and access control, ensuring that only authorized personnel can enter. On the lower levels are research laboratories into advanced technologies, including propulsion and energy systems. Further down are the areas where biological and genetic experiments are supposedly carried out, not only with humans, but also with other forms of life. Rumors indicate that these experiments include cloning, hybridization, and genetic manipulation, all carried out under the strictest secrecy. The Dulce base would not only be a center for technological research and development, but also a place for cooperation between humans and extraterrestrials. It is believed that this complex was designed to harness advanced alien technologies and apply them for military and scientific purposes, in a joint effort to expand the limits of human and extraterrestrial knowledge. Philip Schneider, a geological engineer who worked on the construction of underground military bases, is one of the key testimonies who revealed details about the Dulce base and the alleged armed conflict that took place beneath it in 1979. Schneider was assigned to a project in Dulce, where he soon realized that this was no ordinary underground base. While digging a tunnel, Schneider and his team came across a cavernous area that gave off a strong sulfur odor. Upon descending to investigate, Schneider claimed to have come face to face with what he described as a 7-foot-tall alien. Frightened, and in a reflex act, he fired his service weapon, killing the alien. However, this action triggered a violent response from other aliens who were present in the cave. Schneider described this encounter as one of the most terrifying moments of his life. He reported that after the shot, an intense firefight ensued, resulting in several casualties on both the human and alien sides. According to Schneider, this event was kept absolute secret by the authorities, and any information about what happened was quickly suppressed. He claimed that the Dulce base was just one of several facilities where humans and aliens collaborated on top-secret projects, with potentially devastating implications. Schneider's revelations, although widely disputed and met with skepticism, added a new layer of mystery to the already enigmatic Dulce incident. His death, which occurred under mysterious circumstances, only served to further fuel conspiracy theories, with many believing he was silenced to prevent more information about Dulce's base from coming to light. Over the years, the Dulce base and the stories associated with it have become an important part of UFO folklore, attracting the attention of researchers, filmmakers, and enthusiasts around the world. While some view these stories as pure science fiction, others believe that there is a kernel of truth to the claims, and that the reality behind these stories is stranger than any fiction. Theories and reports about the Dulce base continue to fascinate and intrigue, keeping the debate alive about the possibility that, beneath the sands of the New Mexico desert, lies one of the best-kept secrets in modern history, involving an alliance hidden between humans and beings from another world. Philip Schneider, an engineer who claimed to have worked on building underground bases, shared a stunning story about an alleged conflict with aliens at the base in Dulce, New Mexico. He reported that during an excavation operation in 1979, he and his team came across a cave that gave off a strong sulfur odor. While investigating, Schneider found an alien creature about 2 meters tall. In a reflex of fear, he fired his weapon, killing the being, but triggering a violent response from the other aliens present in the cave. During the confrontation, the aliens used a type of energy weapon that seriously injured Schneider, burning several of his fingers and causing injuries throughout his body. Amidst the chaos, a Special Forces soldier managed to rescue him, activating an emergency elevator but sacrificing his own life to ensure that Schneider could escape. The ensuing battle between the soldiers and the aliens resulted in the deaths of over 60 American servicemen. The consequences of this conflict were profound and varied. The surviving soldiers were scarred, not only physically, but also psychologically. The nature of the incident, combined with the absolute secrecy imposed by authorities, created an environment of fear and distrust. The soldiers were forced to sign extremely strict confidentiality agreements, under threat of severe penalties if they revealed what had happened. Despite these threats, Philip Schneider decided to break his silence years later. He shared his story in conferences and interviews, denouncing that the United States government was in cahoots with extraterrestrials, and that the activities at Dulce were just a small part of a much larger network of interplanetary cooperation. His decision to speak publicly had tragic consequences. In 1996, Schneider was found dead under mysterious circumstances, officially classified as a suicide, although many believed he was murdered to silence him. The figure of Philip Schneider and his account of the conflict at the Dulce base have been the subject of intense scrutiny and debate. Schneider, a geological engineer with a long career building underground facilities, introduced himself to the public in the 1990s with his story about the battle with extraterrestrials at Dulce. His courage in speaking publicly and the graphic details of his wounds seemed to give him some credibility. However, critics question several aspects of his account. The lack of verifiable physical evidence, such as official documents or corroboration from other direct testimony, is a major reason for skepticism. Additionally, some have pointed out inconsistencies in his story and the technical details he presented about underground bases and supposed alien technologies. Despite these criticisms, Schneider's defenders argue that his technical knowledge and the personal consequences he faced, including his death under suspicious circumstances, reinforced the veracity of his testimony. The division between believers and skeptics kept the debate alive about the authenticity of Philip Schneider's account and the existence of Dulce's base. Now let's explore another account, this time in Merrill, Oregon. It happened one night while a driver was driving on Highway 39 out of Klamath Falls. The testimony is from a man who was driving a U-Haul moving truck with a trailer. He noticed a bright, rectangular light emanating from an object about 15 to 20 meters away from the road. Although it was night, he was able to make out a disc-like shape, approximately 20 feet in diameter, with a small segment apparently missing on one side. Intrigued and a little alarmed, the driver slowed down to better observe the object. At that moment, he noticed the presence of several figures around the object. The darkness prevented him from clearly seeing the features of these figures, but they looked small, like children or teenagers, and they seemed to be working around the object. The driver felt alarm when he realized that the figures had noticed his presence and were watching him. Upon entering the city and losing sight of the object, the driver decided to turn around to return and take a closer look. However, upon returning to the location after a few minutes, the object and the figures were no longer there, leaving only a light fog in the area where they had been. During the brief moments in which the driver was able to observe the beings around the object, he noticed that they seemed to be busy with some task, although he could not see their faces or specific details due to the darkness. He estimated that they were short in stature, possibly between 1 and 5 feet tall. Their height in the context led the driver to think that they could be children, teenagers, or even women, due to their thin build. When the beings realized they were being observed, they abruptly stopped their activities and remained motionless, staring at the driver. This reaction increased the driver's feeling of apprehension, who interpreted that the beings were alarmed by his presence. This brief interaction was enough to convince him that he had witnessed something out of the ordinary. After returning to the location and finding it empty, the driver continued on his way. Shortly afterwards, he noticed a red light flashing in the sky, similar to an aerial beacon, but which seemed to float without any visible support. This light, which initially appeared to imitate an aviation beacon, soon revealed other red and white lights around its circumference which moved in sequence. The object then tilted forward and began to fly slowly, changing direction toward the mountains until it disappeared from view. The meeting in Merrill, Oregon was the subject of several investigations and theories that try to explain what happened. One of the first hypotheses suggests that the object seen by the driver could have been an experimental military plane or helicopter. The proximity of military bases in the region supports this theory, suggesting that the driver may have witnessed a secret test of an advanced aircraft. However, the object's lack of noise and unusual maneuvers challenge this explanation. Another hypothesis considers the possibility of it being an advanced drone, as these devices can perform fast and precise movements and are quieter than traditional aircraft. However, the description of the object as a disc with sequential lights and its size apparently much larger than that of a typical drone raises doubts about this theory. The third and most speculative hypothesis is that the driver had an encounter with an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Details of the sighting, such as the bright light, the shape of the object, and the presence of humanoid figures, align with numerous reports of UFO sightings around the world. Furthermore, disruption of the driver's electronic devices is a commonly reported phenomenon in cases of close UFO encounters. Theories and debates about the events recounted in this chapter continue to fuel curiosity about UFO sightings and encounters with beings that defy all logical understanding. The driver, still intrigued by what he had witnessed, continued on his way, but the experience in Merrill remained in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had happened that night. The image of the small figures apparently busy around the object, and the strange silence that surrounded the scene disturbed him. He wondered what those figures were doing and why they disappeared so quickly. In the days that followed, the driver began reporting what had happened to friends and family, but reactions ranged from skepticism to genuine concerns. Some advised him to forget the incident, while others suggested he report the sighting to local authorities or even groups specializing in paranormal phenomena. He, however, was reluctant to seek official help, fearing that he would be ridiculed or, worse, that his life would be invaded by onlookers and investigators. Still, the desire to understand what he had seen was too strong to ignore. Determined to get answers, the driver began researching on his own. He found reports of other sightings in the region, some describing phenomena similar to those he had witnessed. There were stories of strange lights in the sky, unidentified flying objects, and even encounters with mysterious beings. These reports encouraged him to believe that he was not alone, and that something unusual was indeed happening in that area. Shortly afterwards, the driver decided to return to the location of the sighting, this time during the day, in the hope of finding some trace or clue that could clarify what had happened. Upon arrival, he carefully inspected the area where he had seen the object and figures, but found no obvious signs that anything had been there. There were no marks on the ground, no traces of any recent activity. However, as he walked through the area, he noticed something that had previously gone unnoticed: slight interference with his electronic devices, as if something was affecting the signals there. Intrigued, he returned to the town of Merrill and began discreetly asking local residents. To his surprise, he discovered that other residents had also noticed unusual activity that night. Some reported seeing strange lights in the sky, while others mentioned a sense of unrest that seemed to grip the community. There were even rumors that the government might be involved, perhaps carrying out secret tests or, as some whispered, covering up the presence of otherworldly visitors. Over time, the driver began to be approached by individuals posing as UFO researchers and enthusiasts. They were eager to hear his report and include him in their investigations. Reluctant at first, he eventually gave in, sharing his experience in interviews and meetings with others who had been through similar situations. For him, these meetings became a mix of relief and frustration. Relief at finally finding people willing to listen to him without judging him, and frustration at still not having concrete answers about what he had witnessed. Meanwhile, the small town of Merrill began to attract attention outside its boundaries. The incident spread through circles of UFO enthusiasts and paranormal investigators, turning the site into a point of interest for those seeking the unexplained. Conferences and meetings began to be organized, bringing curious people from various parts of the country, all attracted by Merrill's mystery. This renewed attention has brought an influx of visitors to the city, generating a mix of opportunities and tensions among residents. Some residents have begun to profit from the growing mystery tourism, opening souvenir shops, themed cafes, and offering tours of sighting sites. Others, however, were concerned about the intrusion of outsiders and what they saw as a sensationalist exploitation of an event that for them was a source of fear, not curiosity. Among these visitors was a group of independent scientists who, unlike ordinary enthusiasts, came armed with advanced detection and analysis equipment. They set up a small camp on the outskirts of town, with the reluctant permission of local authorities, and began conducting a series of experiments in the area. They used ground-penetrating radar, radiation detectors, and spectrometry devices to try to detect any anomalies that could explain what had occurred. The driver, initially wary of all this attention, began to collaborate with scientists, providing precise details about the location and time of the sighting. In return, he hoped to finally get some answers. Days turned into weeks, and scientists, although intrigued, found nothing conclusive. However, they noticed some anomalous radiation readings in a specific area, which led to more questions than answers. As time passed, the driver began to feel a change in his life. What began as a simple nighttime sighting had turned into a complex journey of discovery and doubt. Not only did he become part of a mystery that attracted the attention of many, but he also began to question his own beliefs and the nature of reality. Meanwhile, the scientific community and enthusiasts continued to debate what exactly had occurred at Merrill. Was it just a coincidence of natural and misinterpreted events? Or had something truly beyond human understanding happened that night? What if there were more encounters like that, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered? The driver, despite not getting all the answers he was looking for, began to accept that he might never get a complete explanation. However, he also realized that Merrill's mystery was greater than he or anyone else could comprehend, and that true value lay in the pursuit of knowledge and openness to the unknown. So he continued his life, but with a new perspective, a mix of skepticism and curiosity, an understanding that sometimes the world holds secrets that defy logic and reason, and that these secrets, however frightening, also, they are an essential part of what makes us human. As the months passed, the driver returned to his daily routine, but the Merrill experience remained fresh in his mind. He felt like he had been touched by something much bigger than himself, something that eluded conventional understanding. The city, once peaceful and quiet, became a point of convergence for curious people, scientists, and even those seeking answers in cosmic mysteries. Conversations about UFOs and encounters with the unknown have become commonplace in local cafes, stores, and even schools. The Merrill incident became the main topic of community meetings, creating a sense of unity among residents who saw themselves as part of something special, yet inexplicable. The driver, although aware of the fascination that his story had generated, began to realize that there was something more important than simply seeking answers, reflection on the fragility and vastness of the universe. He realized that what really mattered was not what he had seen, but what it represented to him and those around him. The experience at Merrill taught him to value questions as much as answers, to embrace the unknown, and to keep an open mind to the possibilities that the world, and perhaps the universe, has to offer. One night, when passing by the sighting site again, the driver stopped his truck on the side of the road. He turned off the engine and got out, taking a deep breath of the cold night air. The sky was clear, the stars shone brightly, and he remembered the feeling of wonder and fear that had come over him that day. But now that feeling was different. There was a serenity in knowing that not everything needs to be explained, that some mysteries can continue to exist without being solved. As he looked towards the horizon, a light mist formed in the field where he had seen the mysterious figures. He wondered if perhaps, somewhere beyond the stars, there were beings who also wondered about what lay beyond their own world. He smiled, knowing that the true mystery was not just in the sky or in the fields, but within each of us, in our ability to imagine, to question, and to keep searching. Upon returning to his truck, he started the engine and continued on his way. This time, there was no more fear, just the feeling that I was part of something bigger, a story that would continue to be told and retold, fueling curiosity and fascination for generations. Now, with this journey reflected and completed, I invite you to be part of this incredible community of explorers of the unknown. If this story touched you in any way, if you found yourself thinking about the vast possibilities of the universe, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you thought of the story, and more importantly, what you learned from it. Leave your opinion and tell us, do you believe there is something more out there? What would you do if you were in the driver's seat that night? Let's continue this conversation in the comments, and who knows, together, we can get closer to understanding the great mysteries that surround us. Thank you for being with us on this journey, and see you in the next story.